Hello, everyone. I thought I would talk to you about being a night owl as a writer. Now, for the most part, I usually don't write at night. However, there are some exceptions. Like, for example, I wrote today um, at night because I got sidetracked earlier, and so I decided to make up for it by writing later in the evening. But I do often get my creative ideas at night, although I usually don't implement them until the next day. I find that that my best writing time is usually in the afternoon, quite often between 1 and 5 o'clock, um, somewhere in there. And but again, I often get my best ideas at night while I'm sitting around thinking, and I also occasionally will read at night as well. Now, of course, the benefit of being a night owl is that I can get peace and quiet after everyone has gone to bed, and I can think of new creative ideas and ways of expressing myself in my writing. Um, However, the negative side is that, especially during the winter, is that it can be quite lonely. Now, I go to bed around usually 2 or 3 in the morning, which now that might sound late, but there was a time where I was going to bed at around 7 or 8 in the morning and getting up around 3 or 4, whereas now going to bed around 2 or 3, getting up around 10 or 11 a.m. And which I think is a good balance because I get enough of the night where I can have peace and quiet, but I'm not sleeping so much during the day that I can't experience life during the day. However, it can be lonely, especially during the winter, because during the winter months, sometimes I will spend more time awake at night than awake during the day, and and also sometimes my family during the winter months will retire to their rooms around sometimes as early as 6 or 7 p.m., which will leave me a lot of time to be alone, which I like being alone, but sometimes there can be a limit if I'm spending over half my day alone, and so that can be the downside of being a night owl is that it can be quite lonely, especially when one has hours upon hours to themselves. You can think, and sometimes you can think too much and get depressing thoughts in some cases or anxious thoughts. But at the same time, you can also get creative thoughts during those hours as well. And now, of course, it can be difficult being a night owl because a lot of people will assume that you are lazy um, if you choose to be a night owl. Even though yeah, I try to get 7 8 hours of sleep. I don't always succeed, but that's what I try to get, and which is normal, and it's only because you're sleeping during the day that people have a problem with it. And I've actually found that early birds are far less accommodative than night owls. There's a sense of superiority. For example, if an early bird wants to meet you for breakfast, let's say at 7 a.m., and you say, "No, that's too early for me." What? And obviously, you can't meet me for dinner at 9 10 o'clock at night. Um, so why don't we compromise and meet, let's say, in the early afternoon around 1 2 o'clock, which is between lunch and dinner, and it won't be very crowded. But often the early bird will say, "No, you're the abnormal one. You must accommodate me." Not the other way around. And then they'll make excuses like, "Well, I want to get there as soon as it opens, or I don't want to, drive in traffic or back in the dark." And is that the night owl is expected to do all the compromising because they're the one who is perceived as being odd, which is why I think that night owls often struggle with have higher rates of mortality is because it's not because they're sleeping, during the day. It's because they just aren't given a lot of understanding. Therefore, they're having to operate while being very tired. And so there is a discriminatory element, even though people who are night owls tend to be far more creative and emotionally intuitive than day people. And so those are my experiences as a night owl.